Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to talk about 5 things to consider when mixing. So let's fire it up. The first thing I'm going to discuss is low pass filtering. There's lots of videos where they tell you to use a low pass filter and they tell you to put it on everything. But that's not really a good practice. There are some sounds and instruments that need a low pass filter, but not everything in your mix needs to have a low pass filter on it. If you low pass filter everything in the mix, you're going to end up collectively EQing the life out of your mix. Depending on the composition, not everything in the mix needs a low pass filter. So avoid putting a low pass filter on everything, or you'll end up with a mix that just sounds very thin. It may sound clean and clear, but it'll sound very thin, making it sound very digital. The second tip is compression. I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying this. Stop putting compression on everything. If you look up the original use of compression, hardware compression, you'll understand why I say this. Now, depending on the genre of music that you're doing and the type of audio files you're working with, your use of compression will vary. If you're doing a composition that uses a lot of MIDI generated data, samples, one-shot samples, you're not going to need that much compression. Most of these sounds are already compressed. Most of these one-shot samples are compressed. Most of your synth sounds already have compression on it. So once your velocity is all even, the sound will always hit at the same decibel every time. So that one-shot snare sample and that one-shot kick sample, they're always going to be hitting the same decibel every time once you have your velocity consistent on your MIDI edit screen. So there's no need for compression unless you're going to be reshaping those sounds with the dynamics, with the compressor. Then you may want to do that. But otherwise, you're just going to need to set your levels, or basically gain stage. Compression is more for sounds that have lots of dynamics. At one point, the sound is very low. Another point, it gets very loud. More like vocals, or if you're dealing with a live guitar or a live bass guitar. There are a lot of peaks and valleys, lots of low points and high points. This is called dynamics, and you're trying to keep the dynamics balanced. So you're trying to keep the low points loud enough so that they're heard, and then the loud points, you're trying to make sure that they're not too loud. And this is where compression is necessary. So to summarize, stop compressing everything. Don't overcompress. It's not that necessary. The next point is gain staging. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this. There's a video linked in the cards right above me where I did talk about this more in depth, and I'll leave a link for that also in the video description. But let me say quickly, the modern plugins today are designed to react positively to audio coming into it at a certain level, at a certain decibel level. So you want to gain stage and hit those plugins at the right level. Also, gain staging will give you headroom to work and to mix in a more sonically sensible way. So practice gain staging. The fourth tip is panning. Now, panning is not very complicated. It's not a complicated subject. If you're dealing with anything beyond mono, the capability of panning will be there. Remember, when you're mixing, you have to take advantage of all 4 dimensions. Yes, there are 4 dimensions of mixing, and with panning, you'll be able to control one of those dimensions. I'll do a video talking about the 4 dimensions later. The 5th tip is ear fatigue. Yes, ear fatigue. This is a real thing that happens. After a while, when you're working on a mix, you will get to a point where everything sounds too loud or everything just sounds bad. And no matter what you do, it just sounds bad. Sometimes it'll sound good, but you'll get to a certain point of the mix where you need to step away for about like 6 hours or so, or maybe a day or two if you have the luxury of time. Then you want to come back to the mix. Most times when you come back with fresh ears, you'll notice that things don't sound the way it sounded before. You might notice that something sounded louder than it did the last time you were mixing, and then you'll be wondering like, why is this so loud? Why did I do this? Or you'll realize at some point in the mix that you lost the kick. Everything got loud, got intense, and now the kick is gone. But you didn't notice that before because of ear fatigue. So after a while, you have to step away and then come back later with fresh ears. I don't know, go take a nap, go do something, and then come back and see how you feel about it. See how you feel about the mix. Here's a bonus tip, guys. There is no one technique that works all the time. So you got mid-side processing, you have gain staging, you have parallel processing, you have summing, you have panning, mixing in mono. We have all these processing techniques, and no one technique will get the job done all the time. You have to try different things. You have to try different things for different mixes. And it may work or it may not work. But, you know, what if you have an issue that needs to be fixed? It can be fixed with a low-pass filter, or maybe a dehisser, or parallel compression, or maybe subtractive EQ might fix it. You have to try different things. These are all different techniques that you have to utilize throughout the mixing process. Most times, you're going to end up using multiple techniques and multiple processes to get your end result. There's no one thing that you could just keep using over and over again and it always works. The key is to make sure you get a successful mix and that you end up with one cohesive composition that sounds great. Just remember, every mix is its own unique puzzle that you have to figure out. It has its own unique audio ID. Okay, that's it for the video, guys. Thank you for checking it out. Hope you learned something. And as always, you will see me in the next video.